you're running up to elections in May. A couple of months before, maybe a bit more, people's gas and electricity bills suddenly went up. Their pay or their salary, their wage slip during the month coming up to the election showed an increase in national insurance. We can see the prices going up in the shops. These are very real things that people gets reinforced with people every day.
On the 5th of May, the UK held local elections up and down the country. They produced some surprising results, with many councils and council seats changing hands. Today, I'm sitting down with representatives from 3 parties that saw surprising local results. That's the Lib Dem leader from Hull, the Labour leader from Barnet, and a Conservative councillor from Croydon, to find out what happened in their area and why they were successful. So, if you could tell us just a bit about who you are, your name, your party, and the area you represent.
So my name is Councillor Mike Ross. I am a ward councillor in Beverley Newnan Ward on Hull City Council. I have been councillor on Hull for 20 years. I am currently the leader of the Liberal Democrat group, and all being well, on Thursday I should become leader of the council.
Hi, my name is Creatura. I am one of the Conservative councillors for Coulsdon Town on the southern edge of London, and I've just been re-elected for my 3rd term on Croydon Council.
My name is Barry Rawlings. I'm a councillor for Free and Barnet Ward in Barnet, and I'm leader of the Barnet Labour group, which recently became the ruling administration. How
did you pull off this local upset?
Winning control of the council wasn't us an overnight success. It's one that's been based on many years of work. We saw Labour take control of the council back in 2011, and the last 11 years really we've been on a process, a journey as it were, to gain back control of the council. We've worked hard across this to do that, and made a real effort of connecting with local residents and being in touch with their concerns. In terms of the sort of issues that residents raised with us, they're really clear that they were by now fed up of really being not listened to by the Labour Council anymore, feeling that their priorities weren't the ones the council were acting on. And we made clear that if the public whole wanted change, the only way to achieve that was by supporting Liberal Democrats.
In this particular election, we, the Conservatives, worked incredibly hard at listening to local people. We did lots of surveys and lots of street stalls and surgeries and public meetings to really try to understand the roots of what people cared about. Because if for the last 8 years, people were telling us they weren't experiencing that. They felt that the previous Labour administration weren't listening to people, weren't engaging with communities, and a lot of the issues and policies they cared about really came out of that. So we did a lot of campaigning that was focused around listening to people, and our now newly elected Mayor of Croydon, Jason Perry, he built his campaign around that, and the policies that he is now implementing and the policies that he developed came directly from listening to local people, and I think that was a very powerful thing that resonated with the community. We also had a well-known bankrupt administration, so Labour ran the finances into the ground, £1.6 billion of debt. And in order to try and compensate for that, they increased council tax to record levels, whilst at the same time slashing services, which impacted disproportionately vulnerable residents. And every single door we knocked, that was known by everyone. So I think those 2 factors were big when it came to actually deciding the outcome of this election.
People were ready for a change. We've had 20 years of a Conservative council. People felt their area was neglected. They didn't see any particular improvement. At the time of a cost of living increase, council tax was being put up. But I also, to be honest, think there were a lot of Conservatives who just didn't vote. The vote was down, and it was mainly seems to be mainly in traditionally Conservative areas, which I think was sending a message to Downing Street that the behaviour and attitude of the National Conservative Party didn't chime in with people's, local people's aspirations and expectations.
What would you say the role was of national issues in this election?
So national issues do come up on the doorstep when it's a local election. Obviously, national issues are often on people's minds. I say for us, when we're on the doorstep, I think the sort of issues that people were talking about were more the local. But undoubtedly, likewise, people's perceptions of the government were affected by what they saw going on at the moment. And they, I think, felt very let down by this Conservative government, the approach and attitude they were taking, be it things like the Partygate and so on, or whether it was other scandals to do with PPE and other issues. A real sense that this government wasn't actually acting in their interests, but were really doing what they wanted to do regardless.
I think the national picture undeniably impacted this election. There was a debate among lots of residents about what was more important to them. Was it sending a message to the government, or was it actually thinking about what services they needed in the local community? And what we found was that overwhelmingly, national issues weren't really coming up on the doorstep. Most people were worried about crime in the local area, worried about schools in the local area, worried about the finances of the council, and looking after the sorts of services that they relied upon to have a happy existence in the area. Bins and fly tipping, graffiti, that kind of thing. And the frustrations of the last 8 years and the financial issues that Croydon had were really far outweighing anything that was happening outside of Croydon, and it was probably unique in the country, one of the few places where real local issues swayed the balance of the election.
Cost of living and the green agenda were the two items that had a greater prominence than they had in any previous election. The green agenda, all the parties talked about it, but I think locally, by us putting it at the centre of what we're doing, setting up a citizens' assembly on sustainability, the fact that the Barnet Conservatives 3 times voted against declaring a climate emergency, again, put them out of touch, out of step with local people and the local feeling. Cost of living was more towards the end of the campaign. But if you think about it, you're running up to elections in May. A couple of months before, maybe a bit more, people's gas and electricity bills suddenly went up. Their pay or their salary, their wage slip during the month coming up to the election showed an increase in national insurance. We can see the prices going up in the shops. These are very real things that people gets reinforced with people every day.
And on the flip side, what were the key local issues that you saw in this election?
Lots of residents raised with us that they were dissatisfied with the local council. Under Labour, there was a real sense that the Labour Council had basically stopped listening to local residents, weren't taking their views into account, weren't acting in the local residents' interests, but instead were simply doing the projects that Labour councils wanted to do. And a lot of people were saying to us that they felt it was time for change. They wanted a different approach. They wanted a council that did listen to them and put their interests first. And we went to the public with that offer.
I think Croydon is unique in the country for a lot of reasons, but particularly because of the resonance of the local issues. There was a lot of controversy over planning policy locally. There was a lot of controversy over failed regenerative developments. The previous council bought a hotel for £30 million, sold it a year later for £25 million. And those sorts of case studies really percolated through, and we saw that on social media, and we saw it in our surveys, and we saw that when we were talking to people, that actually local issues really did outweigh national issues in this particular election. And I think the result is a testament to that. And it seemed to me that there's a lot of results around the country where local issues determined, particularly in marginal areas.
Locally, a few things came up time after time after time. One was people feeling their area had been neglected, and they see that in the fact that if you're in a residential street, you get a street sweeper once every 3 months. So it just felt like I'm cared for. Cracked paving, stones, potholes. I say it's the usual thing, but it is important. It's when people open their front door, what's their immediate impact? Is this an exciting place? Is this a clean place to live? Do I feel safe when it's dark in the streets around here? Those sorts of very local to people, but very real experiences.
So now you're in office, what are you most excited to deliver on for your constituents?
Well, for us, there are a number of things that we are excited about doing, and now we have the opportunity to lead the council. In terms of issues, then clearly we want to see a council that helps deliver a cleaner, greener city, gets the city tidied up, and also one that's safer. We want to bring back a crime prevention fund, one that we had before and was incredibly popular across the city and unfortunately was disbanded under the Labour Council. But there's also for us fundamentally the important issue about reforming how the council operates, making sure that it is one that is in touch with local communities and listens to what local residents have to say. That's not always the case for being able to do what we're asked to do, but making sure that people feel that their views and opinions are valued. And actually, there's that engagement between the council and the public that takes place on a meaningful basis. And so it's about delivering those changes on the ground, but also changing the way the council operates itself.
Well, I'm incredibly excited that we have a Conservative Mayor of Croydon. It's the first time we've had a mayor. We had a referendum in October and we've now got a Conservative in post. He's just under a week in post and Jason Perry is already delivering on some of his key manifesto priorities. He's already started reforming the planning system that was a really key issue in Croydon. He's already reinstated the graffiti removal team that the previous Labour administration axed. Today he's going to a leisure centre that the council closed down to start the process of reopening it. And I think the energy and the drive that he's delivered is going to really be felt quite quickly by people in Croydon, and it's testament to him and his experience as a Croydonian, as a local businessman, that he's really grabbing the reins and getting going very quickly. But personally, as a local councillor, I'm most excited about continuing to listen to people, and for the first time in 8 years the Conservatives are running Croydon, and I think that our experience of being in opposition, our experience of the frustration that local people have of being ignored by the council will put us in good stead to make sure that that never happens again. It's really important, I think, for local councils to properly engage with people with roadshows and canvassing and surveys and being transparent about why we do things and what we do, because if you don't do that, then you make mistakes, and if you make mistakes, then local people can suffer. I think that's something that we're all looking forward to never doing ever again.
Our immediate priorities are our pledges. Some are more fairly straightforward. Quarterly skips, people will see when they were keeping the weekly bin collection. We've got an agreement, we've got just over 2 million we're going to rebate to council taxpayers to help with the cost of living in the autumn. Getting the basics right, although that sounds a bit trite, that is what everybody should expect from their council. It is the basic about picking up waste, getting graffiti removed, and these residents knowing when they can expect pavements to be repaired, potholes to be fixed, doing something about the air, the clean air, the planting, the biodiversity, but things, very visible things people can see. There is longer term cultural change that's needed. There is looking at how we have a different relationship with residents, how to involve more participate, but at a very local level. So you're not being drawn by the loudest voices that are in your ears all the time. But let's do those, I don't know, that group of streets. Let's get highway officers, because they always say about speeding, and ask residents to do a walk around with the highway officers and see if there is a local solution to the local problem, rather than having big ticket items for everywhere. So we're trying to do more community localised action with people as our partners, rather than seeing them as cash machines to provide the council with more money. But actually you save money by working with people at a local level.
What, if anything, do you think your victory shows about British politics more widely?
Well, in terms of what our victory in Hull shows, I think fundamentally it shows that the public of Hull want to change and that they back the Liberal Democrats to achieve that. If there is any message on a wider level, then I think if you tie the result in Hull across what was happening across the country this year in the local elections, the Liberal Democrats were really the clear winners of the local elections this year. We gained more seats than other party. And I think that shows that actually we've come a long way from where we were a few years ago. And people are actually turning back to Liberal Democrats, certainly at a local level, to get the change they want. But also, if you tie it in with parliamentary by-election results in the last year, people are turning to Liberal Democrats in their numbers. I think this gives great hope for the future of the Liberal Democrats.
I think there's a big discussion about British politics and about what direction we want it to go in. There's a lot of animosity, a lot of anger in politics. And if you look at the result in Croydon, the mayoralty was won by the Conservatives by a very slim margin, and the council is in overall control. We have, for the first time ever, 2 Green councillors. We have 1 Liberal Democrat for the first time since 2002. And the Conservatives didn't win an outright majority on the council. So I think there's a real sense of reflection among all councillors about what this means, how we need to do politics differently, how we need to take the sort of partisan heat out of our discourse and work together on things. Because if you can get a diversity of thought in your politics, diversity of ideas and temperament and backgrounds, people that work in the private sector and the public sector, people that have experience with families and without, people that have experience in all different industries coming together to actually discuss ideas in a non-aggressive way, I think we can start really developing for Croydon in particular, but it's something that can be replicated elsewhere.
Obviously, once we won and we got a visit from Keir Starmer, and it was important in that, I say, because we are the council by far with the most Jewish voters, and so anti-Semitism has done a big hit. I think it shows that progress has definitely been made and we're moving in the right direction. There's still work to do. I mean, when you come to hate crimes, the increase in anti-Semitism is still going on. But I think the results showed that we're not the tainted brand that we were 4 years ago.
Fantastic. Well, is there anything else you'd like to go over?
I guess the only other thing I'd say, of course, is a big thank you to the voters as a whole who put their faith and trust in us this year. And we promise to do all we can to serve them in the very best way we can over the course of the year and hopefully beyond.
I think if there's one thing that I'd really like to encourage, and it's something I've tried to do for years, is to try and get more people involved in their community. Around the country, you'll hear stories of all political parties struggling to find local election candidates. And when it comes to council elections, district elections, borough elections, whatever elections that are happening, it's the people that put themselves forward and get elected that actually start to implement policies and shape things, but really at the grassroots community level. So we need more people doing that so that the cream can rise to the surface. And if you don't have that, then our politics is all the poorer for it. So for anyone watching this, if you have some time, even if you don't have time, get involved in your community. It could be a residents association, it could be a community group, a church group, a PTA, anything. But do something to contribute to the social fabric of your community, and because that's the only way that the country and your community is going to get better.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment telling us what we should cover next. You can also check out our website at www.chamberuk.com.